This video is sponsored by Card Kingdom. Go to the link in the description below so they know that I sent you. So, for this edition of Recall, we're sort of picking up with a story related to the last one. Last time we talked about the early phases of Magic Online and made some comparison to responses basically as to how people are responding to Arena. In short, we saw that people thought Magic Online would kind of, ironically, usually it wasn't the same person who had these views, but it was either it was going to fail utterly or it was going to destroy paper Magic. Those were sort of the general arguments. And while neither of those things happened, some of these concerns certainly made sense back in those days. As we talked about last time, Magic Online was unprecedented. You knew what to expect, etc. One concern, though, was also that people might hack the system, and that didn't really happen. However, there were bugs and are bugs on Magic Online that people sometimes use and exploit, and there were others that were just kind of silly. Bugs are still a pretty big issue on Magic Online today. I mean, the program has a weekly bug blog, like Magic Online posts one every week with all the list of all the bugs and workarounds and all these sorts of things, which pretty good indication that you've got a lot of bugs if you have a weekly bug blog. And looking back at Magic Online's bugs is what we're going to be doing today. Just three of them, three relatively short examples. But it's especially topical in the wake of the fact that the new pets with the Mastery system on Magic Arena are, or at least were, capable of crashing the game. While that bug was a problem, it's hard to imagine Arena ever having as many issues as Magic Online. So in some ways, by talking about these bugs, it's sort of saying, thank God Magic Online isn't really the future of this game because it still has so many problems and it's had so many problems. But people on Arena, some exploited the cat bug basically as well, and some people got banned or suspended, I guess is the better terminology, if they use that to win a game. And there's been a lot of that in Magic Online's history too. So we're going to talk about three bugs. One of them is one related to a specific card, and the other two are just like really weird bugs that, as far as I'm aware, are still on Magic Online and have never been fixed and are just the weirdest things ever. So the first one is we're going to talk specifically about Elspeth Knight Errant. So this is one of the most relevant bugs ever on Magic Online, and this is because it ends up with the actual banning of Elspeth Knight Errant, but only on Magic Online. So here's why. So when Elspeth was originally released in Shards of Alara in 2008, there weren't emblems yet. So emblems weren't a thing. Instead, she had an ultimate ability that just said, for the rest of the game, artifacts, creatures, and lands you control are indestructible. So emblems were actually created, when they first were looking at this card and trying to fix problems with it. That's why emblems were created at first, to deal with the awkward fact that Elspeth puts this effect on the board, but there's not really any clear visual way to indicate this fact. And, people can sort of trick people into forgetting maybe and things like that. And they didn't like that. And it also opened up more design space for planeswalkers in general, of course. And she essentially had an ability that was an emblem. It just, if you go and look at the original printing of Elspeth Knight Errant, it doesn't say it. And this worked great in paper Magic. But when they added the emblem, which they did in 2010 on Magic Online, for whatever reason, Elspeth suddenly just started crashing the game. So this would happen sometimes when you played Elspeth. Didn't even have to use the ultimate. This would happen sometimes when you used any of her abilities. Didn't have to be using the ultimate. And this always happened if you used her ultimate to get the emblem. And so people were exploiting this problem, people who were running Elspeth in their deck, by anytime they were losing a game, playing Elspeth and trying to crash the game, and it would just result in a draw for both players. It crashed the game for both players. But that's, in some ways not as bad as the cat glitch, which only makes one person sort of time out, right? So, it's not as bad, but they had to temporarily, while they tried to fix this problem, they had to ban Elspeth on Magic Online. And it was sort of a soft ban. They didn't make it so you couldn't put her in your deck. But if you did during the span, you could get suspended and penalized and things like this. And it was a big deal too. Like Elspeth was a very relevant card at the time. She was being played in standard, extended, and to some extent even in legacy. So people were just playing decks with her, and suddenly they couldn't play her for like 48 hours. So hopefully, let's hope that a card never has to be banned on Magic Arena because of this kind of glitch. Yeah, well, let's hope that doesn't happen.
You say that, but it kind of already happened because Nexus of Fate is banned in Best of One now for a similar reason, because players can just continue the loop without a win condition, where, as in a normal game of Magic, you have to call how many times you're going to perform an infinite loop, and then it ends. That way the game can progress, because otherwise you're just stuck, going in circles, and technically the game would draw if you just let it go on forever, but that's not even allowed. However, Magic Arena doesn't have any kind of hook to stop that, and that is why it's banned in Best of One, because in Best of Three they figure, okay, well, you should probably concede if the Nexus player is exhibiting that they've hit a point where they're in an infinite loop. But Best of One, it didn't feel fair to make the other player sit there, because normally in a game of Magic you can always at least in paper, you can always ask that they perform their loop to make sure that they do it correctly, because especially with combos like Kark Clan Ironworks, which is also now banned for having a unforgiving long play pattern in order to kill the opponent. It's kind of a similar situation. Thankfully with the cat glitch, it's only a temporary suspension, and I think they said total they've only banned or suspended like 10 players or something, because they've counted like just how many clicks people are doing, because they can log that, and they're only getting people that are abusing it multiple times, across multiple games. So yeah,
I would say the Nexus thing's a little different. It's more like, it's not a glitch so much as like an oversight in terms of how the card works in Arena, in terms of Best of One. But yeah, I mean, it was banned because it doesn't really work, because of an oversight, basically.
Yeah, it just has a similar effect on the game where a draw happens, or a functional draw happens. It just all depends on how patient each of the players are. So that one's crazy though. And if you know anything about Magic Online, that program is kind of coded together with strings and shoelace. It was kind of all bootstrapped on, and it's impressive, like we talked about last week. For the time, it was very cutting edge as far as just displaying a a very complicated card game, one of the most complicated, if not the most complicated in the world. But nowadays a lot of that stuff can be much more streamlined. Coding practices have gotten so much better that now we're just building on code that's gone back all the way to 2001, and they haven't had time to just redo the whole thing. So at this point it's just patches on patches on patches. So no wonder when they introduce something new like emblems that it would cause some issues for sure.
Yeah, and I mean, this is just one. I mean, I could spend a long time talking about all the different cards that could crash the game at various times. Yeah. That's just one that's really big because it was like in multiple formats, tier 1 decks.
Yeah.
And it was a big deal because I think it's the only time they like straight up declared Lee Sharp declared that it was banned like on Magic Online for that few days, that it was messed up, which is crazy. So the other two are less sort of abusable, but they're just things that really indicate, like Mike just said, that the code is tied together with bubblegum and things. So another weird one, and this is one that I only know because I've heard LSV talk about it, and it's pretty hilarious. And that is that if you have a 3-letter username on Magic Online, like LSV would or used to, you can't watch replays. So Magic Online has a feature where you can go back and watch replays of your games, which is actually a feature that would be nice on Arena, honestly. But Magic Online has some things, but you don't get that advantage to go back and watch your games and like think about your plays and see how things played out if you don't remember, if you have a 3-letter name. And as far as I know, that still hasn't been fixed. Like you may as well not have one. And that's why if you ever watch, LSV play online, or you run into him online, his name is LSV underscore, because he was trying to get that fixed and they would never fix it. So he wanted to be able to watch his replays and made a new username. So
that's kind of funny. I just kind of assumed that somebody took LSV like as soon as Magic Online accounts opened up or something, and that's why he had the underscore, because I noticed that at some point. But that's too funny that it's a replay thing. They really got to fix that though, because that poor guy out there named Ass can't watch his replays.
Yeah, I mean, I guess don't pick a 3. They should tell people. They should just say they have to be 4 letters or longer, and then they never have to worry about it. But it's still a glitch as far as I'm aware, and that's not a bug that's going to ruin anything. But it's like, really,
yeah,
how would that even happen? I don't know.
Are you even allowed to have a name that's less than 3 characters?
I don't think so. I mean, I think 3 is the minimum.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm wrong.
That was kind of funny, though, given the penchant for 3-letter nicknames in the Magic community, that would happen, because, if you're not super into, the competitive scene, there's LSV, BBD, BDM, can't think of, I know there's more than that even, but, yeah, that is a pretty funny coincidence. Did they ever explain? Is it just like the string for the replay code is like checks for certain characters?
I don't know. I don't think they've ever really explained it. I mean, I think they just
MTGO,
as far as I'm aware,
is an enigma wrapped in enigma.
Yeah. And the other one is, just another one that's like, how have they not fixed this? It's been like this for years. And that is a bug related to EDH. If you're playing Commander, sometimes I have a friend of mine, we don't live in the same town anymore. And so we build Commander decks on Magic Online and play each other. And we usually do best of 3 because, why not? But one of the dumbest downsides of doing that is that, as it would with any best of 3 match, it lets you go to your sideboard between, which fine, that's fine. But you can't click submit. You have to wait for the clock to go all the way down to 0. So if you play 3 games, you waste 6 minutes of your life, basically, if you try to play best of 3 Commander, because for some reason they can't take away the fact that, somehow clearly the fact that there is no sideboarding Commander and it wants you to sideboard is confusing the program. But it shouldn't do that. It's just like a really small, stupid thing that has been frustrating for me in my experience on Magic Online. Even it's just 6 minutes, but why?
Yeah, that is really weird. I mean, I understand that Commander is generally played as a 4-player, one game format, but
right,
there's definitely competitive EDH players that. Oh, then again, is the CEDHQ a best of 1, or is it?
I think it's best of 3. I mean, maybe it's not, but I think both of these issues though go to show you, a lot of people don't play best of 3 Commander. My friend and I are strange, but the point is that in specific situations there are weird bugs that are still buried within the program. If you have a specific username, it doesn't work. If you play a specific format, something doesn't work how it's supposed to. And those things, hopefully, as Arena gains more and more cards in its library, hopefully issues don't emerge. I mean, it's a really weird phenomenon on Magic Online that when they update a new set, somehow something they do makes it so a card that was printed 14 years ago now doesn't work or something like that. Hopefully we don't end up there with Arena, and it doesn't feel like we will. Maybe I'm optimistic.
Yeah, I think the coding languages that Unity uses are just a lot more robust, the way that they store libraries and things like that. If you haven't done any coding before, there's various ways to store chunks of code and call them from a list and things like that. And with Magic Online, it's just clear that they got their basics down. They probably got, okay, here's a game of type 2, that can play well within the rules. We've got that set up. And then, as soon as they wanted to start adding more formats and more options, since they were in unexplored territory, it just feels like they kind of figured out, okay, we can put a little patch on this code that'll make it work, kind of. Like in the case of the Best of 3 Commander, yeah, they probably hard-coded in that there is this sideboarding time and didn't give consideration to the fact that down the road there could be formats that didn't have sideboarding. So, it's like...
Well, the weird thing about it is it's not just the sideboard time. I'd be fine with that. But in any other format, you can just click submit right away. And if you and your opponent both do it, you go to the next game.
Yeah, that's true. And maybe it checks for if no sideboard, can't click OK. Something weird like that, was put in because it solved some other weird glitch. There's just so much of that going on. Whereas I would hope against hope with Arena that they took their lessons from, the mess that is Magic Online and hopefully, had good best practices going forward with Arena as far as the way that they organize things and made it more future proof, working a little more directly with the teams and stuff. So
another good indicator of all of these problems and how they're still buried within Magic Online even today is that there's a format called Penny Dreadful, which is an interesting format that's all on Magic Online. Every card in the format, it's like Super Pauper, where every card in your deck has to cost 1 cent, 0.01 tickets on Magic Online. So you can build a deck for like $1, less than $1, really. But because of Magic Online and because it's a format that's weird and there's all kinds of cards that see play that never see play anywhere else. If you go to the Penny Dreadful website, they have a listing of all the bugs and cards that are banned right now because there are bugs that are game breaking. And there's like a few dozen, so that they just, and there are probably more. Those are just ones people have discovered when they put together their wacky Penny Dreadful deck, and they have some common that nobody's thought of in a really long time from Mirage in their deck, but it still like shows you that there's all of these things that just don't work in Magic Online, that aren't things people play regularly, I guess.
Ooh, so I just thought of one more that I know. That was actually pretty major. During one of the Mox championships, the dragon, the demanding dragon from a couple sets ago, or I guess was that M19? It was the...
Yeah, I think so.
Was it a 5-drop, 5/5 dragon? When it enters the battlefield, target opponent can sacrifice a creature or take 5 damage. That deck was extremely overpowered that played that, I think because Sarkhan was out at the time, so he could ramp this thing out. The opponent didn't get a choice of, what to choose. They had to sack a creature, I believe. If they had no creatures, then they took 5 damage. But they did not get to choose, so that was kind of backbreaking for decks that would rather take the damage. Like, it gave it just that little bit extra push where, it played more like a Fleshbag Marauder, or something. That was also a 5/5 flying dragon.
A huge one-sided Fleshbag Marauder.
Exactly. So, and that one actually did. They just had to let it go because, like, I don't think the bug happened until that day, or it was discovered very recently before the tournament, and it wasn't enough time for them to say, like, hey, no demanding dragons in the pool. And I believe a demanding dragon deck won, playing 4 copies, and a little bit of a sneaky way to win the thing because it everybody figured it out pretty quick and they were yelling about it on Twitter. That's how I found out about it. But yeah, another interesting time that those bugs just cause a little bit of extra mayhem that doesn't quite happen in the real game.
The bugs that make cards actually better are interesting. There was also one with Kolagon's Command, another fairly recent one from like Dragons of Tarkir. It's like 1, a black, and a red. It's a modal card like all those commands. And it has an option like do 2 damage to a creature or player, make someone discard a card, return something from your graveyard. And for a while, if you did 2 damage to a creature, if you did 2 damage to a creature when you cast it, it also did 2 damage to the player. Oh. And you got the other option too, because it was choose 2. So it's like you were getting three options out of Kolagon's Command, and that caused some problems.
It's already one of the best cards in the game, at least according to modern and legacy players. I think that's probably one of the most played cards in out of that cycle for sure.
Yeah, definitely is. All right, well, that does it for Recall. And talked about some bugs to reminisce about how the cat bug really isn't that big of a deal going forward. That does it for this edition of Limited Recall. Remember, you can contribute to the podcast on my Patreon, Needs Own Magic. You can also find me on Twitter at Needs Own Magic. You can find Mike at Mythic Tales Mike. He's a great person to follow if you're interested in, magic in general, but especially magic art, magic animations. Check those things out. Anything else you want to plug?
No, especially at the moment. I'm doing like little art appreciation posts on Twitter. If you want to look a little more in depth at the magic art with me, go for it. And if you're ever looking for any of the higher res art, just hit me up as well. I try to collect all those images. So if you're a content creator or somebody that needs that stuff, just feel free to message me and I'll hook you up, because those are marketing resources for everybody. But as I always say, if you're going to use the art as like a main focus of whatever you're making, just always credit the artists, because they need that recognition for, oh man, like if you haven't followed that stuff lately, so many artists are actually painting like oil paintings again for these pieces. Sometimes you can tell if you have a good eye for like the textures on a piece. Obviously Seb McKinnon, has been huge up and comer that is doing that. But Ryan Pankos, many others like that, have turned back to traditional painting. Everyone says that, this digital art doesn't look great anymore. Well, a lot of these guys are back to doing that because their pieces are selling for tens of thousands of dollars. And to get to that point, they need to get some notoriety, and just give them a shout out when you can. If you really like an artist, just find them on Twitter and say, hey, I like your art. They really appreciate it.
When River Hoopo went up for sale, the oil painting, it ended up going for about $40,000, which is a little outside of my budget. So instead, I have a print of River Hoopo. That's all I've got.
And of course, if you can't afford those massively, and that said, with the $40,000 piece, there's plenty of oil paintings that are going for only a couple grand if you're only mediocrely wealthy. But if you're more average, like us, you can always pick up a nice $10 print. A lot of them have online stores and you can get it shipped, and it comes in a nice tube, and then put it on your wall, or just have, I don't even have mine on the wall, I just have them in frames, and I kind of just flip through them every once in a while. Someday I'll figure out where I want to hang up. But so just a little reminder to everybody, support the artists, make the game look great.
That is important. And you can also find Mike on YouTube at Mythic Tales Mike, where you can find some of his animations as well. But you can find most of those on Twitter too. So, all right. So that does it for this episode. We'll be back next time talking some more about Core Set 2020. We'll probably speculate a little bit about the next set.
We know the names.
Throne of Eldraine or whatever.
Yep, Throne of Eldraine.
As we're recording this, it has only very recently come out that's the name of the set. So that's why I was not certain.
And this might come next week later. So just so you know, we would have talked about it more, and we will talk about it more later. But we just know the name and that there's fairies, because they only just now showed the image of from Comic-Con of the little invitation. We invite you to the Court of Eldraine or whatever. So. Yep. Don't get down our throats on that. If you want our immediate reactions, check Twitter.
Yeah, for sure. All right, well, everybody have a nice day, and thanks for listening.
Let's go out with a bang.
Sit back and watch it burn.